That's 11-4.
Pretty close.
5 again.
Oh, good. That's carried. That's carried. Thank you very much. So now we'll get back to where we're supposed to be. That one.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Okay, we're now on to item. Thank you, everyone. We're now on to item 13. Draft Ōtautahi Christchurch Future Transport Strategy. And here comes
We
Jane.
can just take it as read and see if there's any questions. We don't need a presentation, do we?
I've got a meeting at 12:30. I'm coming back.
How does everyone have
Guys, can we actually have a bit of order?
have we got any burning questions of Jane, or are we happy to put this out there? Have we got a mover and seconder for a start? Mel will move it, Sarah will second it.
Can we have a presentation?
Do you want to see the presentation? Okay, we'll see the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Kia ora, councillors. Today we're coming back. We last came to talk to you about this work on in late August with a proposed framework for an updated draft transport strategy. Today we're asking for you to make a decision on whether to proceed to publicly consult on the draft strategy, and we're also asking for a decision about whether or not to proceed with hearings following that the public consultation process. I do have a couple of slides which effectively really briefly summarise the main points from the strategy. So I'll go through those and then we can open up for questions. So just to remind councillors, the purpose of this strategy is a direction setting 30-year horizon strategy for land transport. It's intended to guide all of the transport programs across council, so the transport delivery and planning work programs, and it's at a high level, but what we intend it to do is provide a framework for detailed implementation through annual and long-term plans. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're in lockstep between transport and land use planning, and this strategy hasn't been updated since 2012, so it's an opportunity to make sure that we're clear with our residents, with local businesses, and also with our funding partners about where we're at with our long-term vision for transport at the moment. Scope, whole of district, we do drill down into areas where there are where transport supports growth or where there's particular hazard risk. So you see Banks Peninsula and the MRT corridor there as examples. And it's about how we move through, how we move on the transport network, but also as transport as a placemaking element in our environment as well. You'll all be really familiar with these challenges and opportunities. So what we're really planning for over the 30-year horizon are reducing transport emissions, building more resilience into our network to respond to natural hazards and adapt to climate hazards in particular, manage growth both within our city and also in sub-regional growth coming into our city, safety on the network, and also recognising that we're going to have cost pressures along the way, and getting the balance right between maintaining our assets and making the improvements that we need to make to manage the risks and growth opportunities that we have will be a constant trade-off, and what the strategy is trying to support councillors to do is to have the goals to discuss and the evidence over time to discuss the trade-offs around those cost pressures. So we've talked about the vision. The words in bold there are, I think, the important ones: the vibrant, prosperous, climate resilient district, and the role of transport, the shaping and connecting role, and the inclusive role, everyone moving around safely and easily. We've got 6 goals, and the goals are about a mix of supporting continuous improvement for how we manage the transport network, as well as some of the more transformational changes that we need to make on that network to meet those challenges and opportunities. So from the perspective of getting the basics right, managing our well-managed transport assets is the first goal, and that's effectively the backbone of the work. Adding value to that network, building in more resilience, developing our climate adaptation approach and plan, focusing on high-risk areas from the perspective of creating a safer network. Efficiency was something that came through on the discussion that we had with elected members in the information session, so we've called that out explicitly in Goal 4. So that's recognising that there are certain types of movement on the network that we want to prioritise. Genuine transport choices. There's a threat. It's a bit of a triple threat. This one. It's about efficiency. It's about reducing transport emissions, and it's also about inclusive access. And lastly, vibrant, livable city. We've just been talking about Takaha streets. So finishing what we've started in the central city, planning for growth along the public transport corridors, and those sorts of activities are in Goal 6, that land use integration story. So just finally, while we don't lay out the implementation, what we're saying is the implementation we want to put more detailed planning into effect, deliver that through our long-term planning processes. But what we're proposing is a strategic pipeline approach. So it's a mix of continuous improvement, doing the basics better, strategic foundations. We call out some of the big programs that will be really important for that. PT Futures, Pages Road Bridge, Cycle Network, and also recognising that we'll have on the horizon planning that we need to do around the MRT and adaptation planning in particular. So getting a real pipeline feeling into how we're talking about implementation. And finally, next steps, decision today. We'll consult, if you agree, we'll consult for 4 weeks. We are asking whether or not you want to proceed with hearings. In the report, there's some information there on pros and cons. It's a pretty high-level document. There's been quite a lot of engagement around strategic transport with the public through the long-term plan, etc. So we're asking for a decision on that today. Adoption will be early next year, depending on whether or not we have hearings. And we'll look to put an implementation plan together and integrate that into regular reporting in the next council term. So that's my overview, and through the chair, any questions? So
Tim's going to be first, but so you need from us whether we want A or B before we vote on the whole thing?
Yes, so we're decision on whether to approve to head out there and consult.
A, yeah.
And then the second decision is hearings or no hearings.
Yeah. Okay, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It's good that we're going to have at least 4 weeks public consultation, and definitely support that. And I think I prefer hearings as well, but I would like to get, say, from our communications team, with regards to the hearings, because my concern is with consultation. People keep saying you hear from the usual suspects, and I'm just hoping that if we hold hearings, that would open up to further groups or give our plan strength. So if we have, say, residents associations, etc., to come and to hearings and give that. Is it?
So I can't recall a time where someone has spoken at a hearing recently that hasn't made a written submission as well. And the project team have sought legal advice on this position. We're not required to, by legislation, to hold hearings for consultation on this document. As Jane said, it's a high-level strategy, and through the submission process, you'll likely receive sufficient understanding of community views and preferences for decision-making without the need for hearings. But ultimately, it's your decision.
Okay, thank you.
So if we don't have hearings, we end up having a bunch of deputations that come straight to council for everyone to hear. Yeah, I think that, so that's B. Yeah.
Sorry, is it, Yanni, please?
Thanks. I'll move that we have hearings. I think hearings are incredibly important. There's a number of people in the areas that I represent where they actually, not everyone is good at making written submissions, and some people actually like the opportunity to come and talk to us. So I think we need to be mindful. This is a significant strategy for the city. So I'm not quite sure why it's been assessed as low significance, but and I think if given the significance of it, I think it should be the full council that holds the hearings. So to get around that issue of only selecting a few people, but I just feel the problem when we have deputations is that we don't have time between when people speak to us to make amendments or changes based on what they've said. And people do quite often sometimes say different things to what's in the written submissions as well. So yeah, my preference would be to have hearings just to give the feedback. Cool.
Melanie?
I agree with what Yanni said. Does it need to be a hearing process to have everyone come and talk to us, or can we just have it, or is it best to do it as a hearing process but with all of council, or just as part of a meeting where still everyone can come? Whatever happens, I'd like everyone to come and talk to us. I don't care whether it's a hearing or not a hearing, just as long as we're hearing from everyone.
There is,
Hear submissions rather than a hearings panel.
and there's also separate reporting requirements if you do a hearing, so it just takes longer.
If we decided that it would come as a report to council and people did deputations, would we then, if we wanted more information, be able to lie the paper on the table after the submissions to ask for more information to come back to make a future decision, like you kind of do with hearings? Because if that's Yanni's issue at the moment.
Yeah.
Katie, can you provide an answer? That one? Oh,
What was
didn't
that?
hear
Sorry,
it?
we missed
So it's whether if we had the paper to come to council and people did deputations and we had some discussion and questions with staff, could we then lay the paper on the table for the information to come back and see the paper at the next time? It's just cutting out that extra reporting stage in the middle of the hearings panel report writing. That is the timing thing on that ahead of.
Yeah, so the council could hear submissions. You don't even need to hear deputations, and then just consider the decision at a subsequent meeting.
Yeah. So we can do it at a council meeting and then ask for information and then redo it at a council meeting.
Yeah, it'd be like a special consultative procedure or something.
No, because that's a different legal process. But
Okay, so voting on it as it sits there.
Yeah.
So we're just so I'm on the right track, and it's not very often I am. We're voting on what's here in front of us. Does that make sense to everyone? Not include hearings, but have it public consultation. Okay.
So what you're saying is not include a separate hearings process, but you're wanting to enable people to submissions to be heard, but it's not a formal hearings process.
Can we have that written? Not include hearings, but allow submissions to be heard at a council meeting.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to write that in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's saying why don't we just say agrees to receive written and oral submissions, that council receives written and oral submissions.
To not include hearings, but agrees to receive written and oral submissions.
Well, I think it's
Or just to
In the public engagement process.
There's nothing to do with the formal hearings process.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Okay, you happy with that?
Yeah.
You right there,
This is due last week.
Sarah? hang on. There we are. Happy?
As part of the yes, part of the public engagement and council decision-making process. And then take out the so does that capture what everyone
Yeah.
understands? So there's not a separate formal hearing process going on, but actually submissions can be made in writing, and the council will hear all submissions as part submissions or deputations as part of their decision making process.
Mover and seconder, happy?
Sorry, and we'll have time between when we hear from people to when we make the decision. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Can we, through the chair,
Yes.
we suggest to take out the wording to be heard? So agrees to receive written and or oral submissions as part of public engagement.
Oh yes, yeah, that wasn't meant to be there. Sorry.
Good
Thank you
thinking,
for-
99.
Thank you for noticing that.
Very good. Yep. Okay. All happy? Right, so I'll put that motion. We've got a mover and seconder. Put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Aaron, against? Just Aaron.
No, we're not.
Okay, so now we're going to have some lunch. Okay, but before we have lunch, we're going to go